The deep space vessel Aurora moved silently through the endless black sea of stars. Inside its metal walls, the crew slept, their dreams carried by the soft hum of the engines. But one man could not sleep. Eli Carter, a human engineer, lay awake in his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling above him. The temperature regulators had broken again, and the room had grown bitterly cold. His breath came out in thin, white mist. The metal walls seemed to echo the loneliness of deep space. Across the small cabin sat Talari, the ship's alien biologist. She belonged to a species known as the Velari, tall, graceful beings with silver skin that shimmered faintly under dim light. Her eyes glowed like pale moons, calm yet distant, and her voice always carried the softness of a song half forgotten. Eli had worked beside her for months, but he still felt uneasy around her. Not because she was alien, but because she was so different, so still, so unreadable. Tonight, however, she didn't look calm. She sat curled up on the other bunk, arms wrapped around herself, trembling slightly. Her breath came in short, uneven waves. The Velari came from a warm, humid planet where even the night air was gentle. Cold, dry environments like this were agony for them. Eli noticed her hands, long, delicate fingers shaking as if she was trying to hold herself together. "Hey," he said softly, breaking the silence. "You okay over there?" Talari looked up, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint cabin light. "I am functioning," she said after a pause. Her voice was low, careful, as if each word was chosen like a fragile gem. Eli frowned. "You look frozen. You can take my heat blanket. I'll be fine." She shook her head slightly, the motion graceful but stubborn. "Your body also requires warmth. You will suffer if you give it away," he sighed, sitting up. "Talari, humans can handle the cold better than you. I'll be fine, really." She hesitated, her gaze flickering to his blanket. The ship groaned softly as it drifted through another pocket of cosmic wind. The air was dry and bitter. "Finally," she whispered, "it is not only the temperature, it is the silence. My people, we are never alone. We share thought and feeling through touch. This emptiness, it feels like being buried alive." Eli's chest tightened. He hadn't thought about that. Humans were used to loneliness. They carried it quietly. But for her, this cold silence must feel like suffocating darkness. He rubbed his arms, thinking, "You're saying you can't sleep because you're alone?" She nodded slightly, her glowing eyes lowering. "Yes, I can hear only my own thoughts. They echo too loudly." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and sad. Eli didn't know what to say. What could he possibly do? He was just a mechanic, not a comforter. But before he could respond, Talari looked at him again, directly, with a strange mix of hesitation and hope. "Eli," she said quietly. "May I sleep beside you?" For a moment, his mind went completely blank. "You want to what?" he stammered, her voice trembled slightly. "Humans emit warmth, not only physical heat, but emotional. When you speak, when you laugh, I feel it. It comforts me. If I were close to you, I believe I could rest." Eli's heartbeat quickened. It wasn't a request of romance. It wasn't about attraction. It was something much deeper, a need for connection, a bridge across two lonely species. He swallowed hard, feeling both awkward and deeply moved. "Yeah," he said finally. "If it'll help you, then, yeah, come here." Talari hesitated for only a moment before she rose from her bunk. Her movements were silent and smooth like flowing water. She crossed the small space between them and stood by his bed. For the first time, Eli noticed how tall she really was, almost a head taller than him even while she bent slightly. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the faint lights of the cabin. Slowly, carefully, she slipped under the blanket beside him. The faint glow of her body lit the darkness like a soft lamp. Eli felt her presence beside him, cool at first, then slowly warming. The air between them changed, no longer empty but alive. She exhaled softly. "Your heart is fast," she whispered. Eli gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, I guess I'm not used to alien roommates." Her lips curved in the smallest of smiles. "Do not fear. I only wish to rest and feel that I am not alone." Eli nodded, relaxing a little. "You're not," he said quietly. "Not tonight." For the first time since the engines had gone quiet, the room felt warm again, not because of the blankets, but because of something else, something human. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's life support. The dim emergency light painted everything in a pale blue glow. Eli lay still, trying to calm the wild beating of his heart. Beside him, Talari lay quietly under the same blanket, her silver skin faintly shining against the fabric. He could feel the gentle rhythm of her breathing, slow and uneven at first, then gradually settling as warmth began to spread between them. Her presence was strange yet peaceful, like standing near something ancient and pure. The cold that had once made the room unbearable now seemed to fade away. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable anymore. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, full of unspoken thoughts and gentle awareness. Then softly, Talari broke it. "You humans," she whispered, her voice low and melodic. "You are such warm creatures. Even when you are in pain, even when the void surrounds you, you still share warmth." Eli smiled faintly in the dark. "Maybe that's just how we survive," he said quietly. "We're small, fragile, and the universe doesn't care about us much. But we take care of each other. That's how we make it through." She turned her head slightly toward him. "Your kind fascinates me. My people, we do not touch like this. It is considered too personal, too overwhelming. Yet you hold each other without fear." He shrugged a little, trying to keep his tone light. "We hug, we shake hands. Sometimes we just sit close when words aren't enough. It's our way of saying, 'I'm here.'" Talari was quiet for a long moment, her eyes reflecting faint light like pieces of glass. "That simple phrase," she murmured. "I'm here. It sounds small, but it carries so much meaning." "It does," Eli said softly. "Sometimes it's all someone needs to hear." Her eyes softened. She shifted closer, not touching him yet, but near enough that he could feel the faint heat of her body. "Do you ever feel alone, Eli?" she asked. He hesitated. The question hit deeper than he expected. "Yeah," he admitted after a moment. "A lot of the time, actually. Space is beautiful, but it's quiet. Too quiet sometimes. You start missing small things, wind, laughter, the smell of home." Talari closed her eyes slowly. "I understand that." Her voice trembled faintly. "When I left my world, I told myself I would be strong. But there are nights when I can still hear the rain of my homeworld in my dreams, and I wake up crying because I know it's gone." Eli turned his head to look at her. There was no barrier of species in that moment, no difference that mattered. Just two beings who knew the same ache, the ache of distance, of loss. "I'm sorry," he said gently. She shook her head, eyes still closed. "Do not be. The universe takes and gives. Tonight it gave me warmth." Her words touched something deep inside him. He didn't know how to respond, so he didn't try. Instead, he pulled the blanket a little higher, making sure she was covered. The gesture was small, but she noticed. Her hand, delicate and faintly glowing, moved slightly under the blanket until it rested near his. At first, he thought she'd done it by accident. But then her fingers brushed against his, just a soft, tentative touch, like testing the edge of something new. He didn't move away. He simply turned his palm upward and let her hand rest against his. Her skin was cool at first, smooth like glass, but it warmed quickly. The feeling was strange but not unpleasant. It carried a quiet sense of trust, something rare and fragile in a universe so vast and cold. For a long time they stayed like that, hand in hand, surrounded by the soft hum of the ship. Time didn't seem to exist anymore. There was only warmth and silence and the faint comfort of knowing someone else was there. Finally, Talari spoke again, her voice so soft he almost didn't hear it. "Do you know what I thought of humans before I met one?" Eli smiled a little. "Let me guess. Loud, reckless, impossible?" A faint musical laugh escaped her lips. "Yes," she admitted. "And I was not wrong. But I did not know you could also be gentle." He chuckled quietly. "We have our moments." Talari's glowing eyes opened and she looked at him with something close to wonder. "Perhaps it is that combination," she whispered. "The strength to fight and the heart to care. Maybe that is what makes your kind different." Eli felt something stir inside him. Pride, maybe, or just the warmth of being seen. He didn't have an answer for her, so instead, he simply squeezed her hand lightly and she returned the gesture. In the quiet that followed, her breathing slowed until it matched his. The hum of the engines faded into the background. The stars outside the small window drifted by, silent witnesses to the moment. Before sleep took her, Talari whispered one last thing, her words soft as starlight. "Tonight," she said, I am not alone. Eli smiled in the dark. Neither am I, he whispered back. Eli was just beginning to drift into sleep when he felt a sudden shift beside him. Talari's body tensed sharply under the blanket. Her soft, glowing form shivered violently, and a low, strained sound escaped her lips. He opened his eyes to see her eyes wide, her pupils glowing brightly in the dim light. Something was wrong, Talari, he whispered, his voice trembling with concern. He reached out, touching her arm lightly. Hey, wake up. It's okay. You're safe. Her breathing came in fast, irregular gasps. For a moment, she recoiled from his touch, instinctively pulling away. Eli froze, unsure of what to do. He had learned that her species often reacted sharply to sudden contact, but he had to try. It's me, he said softly. Eli, I'm here. Nothing can hurt you right now. Slowly, she began to recognize him. Her glowing eyes softened, but the fear remained, lingering like a shadow. Her hands pressed against her chest as if trying to hold herself together. Finally, she whispered in a trembling voice, The flames. I saw the flames again, my home. It is burning. Eli's heart tightened. He remembered the stories she had told him about her planet, Valara, and the civil war that had torn it apart. She had lost everything, family, friends, her entire world. Those memories were buried deep, but the nightmares had not released her. Shh, he murmured, gently drawing her closer. You're not there anymore. You're safe now, I promise. Her head shook slightly against his chest, trying to fight back the fear. It is real. I hear the screaming. The fire. I cannot breathe. Eli felt an ache in his chest. She was so fragile in this moment, so vulnerable, and yet she had carried herself with such pride during the day. Now she was just a frightened soul, terrified of ghosts from a world that no longer existed. He wrapped his arms around her carefully, letting her lean against him. She froze at first, as if unsure if she could trust this human comfort, but slowly her body began to relax into the embrace, the trembling lessening with each heartbeat she could feel beside her. You're not alone, he whispered, holding her close. Not anymore. I'm right here. Nothing can touch you now. Talari's glowing eyes slowly closed, tears glinting like tiny stars on her cheeks. She pressed closer, her small frame leaning against his, seeking the warmth of his human body. Eli's own chest tightened at the sight. He had never seen anyone, human or alien, allow themselves to be so open, so exposed. And yet she did it with him. It is strange, she murmured softly, her voice barely audible over her trembling breaths. I thought I would be strong enough to endure this alone. But your warmth, your presence, it is comforting. Eli kissed the top of her glowing head lightly, an instinctive gesture he didn't think much about, yet it seemed to calm her further. You're stronger than you know, he said gently. Even the strongest need someone to hold them sometimes. She clung to him, wrapping her long, delicate fingers around his hand. You humans, you give without expecting anything. You comfort without judgment. It is unfamiliar, but necessary. He felt a lump in his throat. We do what we can. That's all. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes it's not. But tonight I'll make sure it's enough. For the next hour they stayed like that. The cold of the ship seemed to vanish, replaced by a quiet, shared warmth. Eli could feel her heartbeat slowly synchronizing with his own. She had been terrified, but now she was breathing calmly, her body slowly unwinding from the tension of her memories. Finally, she whispered almost to herself, Thank you, Eli. I did not know it was possible to feel safe again. He squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to thank me. You deserve safety. You deserve warmth. Everyone does. Outside, the stars drifted silently past the porthole, indifferent and infinite. Inside, two very different beings shared something precious, trust. For a moment, nothing else mattered, neither war nor distance nor loss. There was only comfort, the quiet rhythm of two hearts finding harmony in a cold universe. As Eli lay awake beside her, he realized something profound. Humans were often called fragile, unprepared for the vast dangers of space. But perhaps their true strength wasn't technology or weapons. It was this, the ability to share warmth, to care, to comfort, and to build trust where nothing else could. And tonight, he had witnessed it firsthand. The night had grown deeper, and the hum of the aurora felt like a gentle heartbeat echoing through the silent corridors. Eli lay awake beside Talari, listening to the slow rise and fall of her breathing. She had finally stopped trembling, but the quiet traces of fear lingered in her posture. Even in sleep, her body seemed tense, as if expecting the shadows of her past to return. Eli shifted slightly so that he could look at her without disturbing her. Her silver skin glimmered faintly in the dim emergency light, like moonlight reflecting off calm water. He could see the small line of worry between her eyes and the delicate curve of her mouth. She looked so fragile, yet there was a strength there too, a resilience that only someone who had survived unimaginable loss could carry. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he whispered, though she was barely conscious of the words. "It's okay to lean on someone. That's what humans do. That's what friends do." Her eyes fluttered open slowly, glowing softly in the dim light. For a moment she seemed uncertain, hesitant, but the trust in Eli's presence held her still. "I am not accustomed to this," she said, her voice low. "I do not usually allow someone to see me in this state. I do not usually allow anyone to touch me when my thoughts are storming." Eli reached out gently, taking her hand in his. "You're safe with me. I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight. You can rest and I'll stay here. That's all you need." Talari's fingers lingered on his, warm now from the shared blanket. She tilted her head slightly, eyes meeting his. "Humans. You speak with such ease about care. It is so foreign, yet it feels necessary. I did not know that someone could offer comfort without expecting anything in return." "That's the point," Eli replied softly. "Comfort isn't a transaction. It's just giving. That's how we survive. That's how we get through nights like this." She blinked slowly, absorbing his words. "Your presence is always soothing. My heart, which is usually restless and alert, now feels calm." I did not think it was possible. For a long while they lay side by side under the blanket. The warmth of his body radiated toward her, steady and unwavering. She leaned slightly closer, resting her head against his shoulder, a subtle yet profound gesture of trust. Eli's chest tightened at the intimacy of it, not in fear but in awe of the moment. To have an alien being, so proud, so logical, so reserved, choose to place her trust in him even for a single night, felt extraordinary. "You humans carry light in your hearts," Talari murmured. "It is not fire, not the burning energy of stars, but a soft, steady warmth. You give it freely, even to strangers. I have observed your kind for cycles, but I never understood until now." Eli smiled faintly, though his heart thumped in his chest. "We're not perfect. We make mistakes, hurt each other sometimes. But in the end, we try to care. That's our strength. That's how we survive." Her hand squeezed his gently. "I wish my people understood this," she said quietly. "We measure logic, efficiency, survival. But I now see that warmth, trust, and care. These are as important as any technology or strategy. Perhaps more." Eli turned to look at her, letting her small hand rest in his. "Sometimes the strongest weapons aren't lasers or shields," he said softly. "Sometimes it's just being there for someone, letting them know they're not alone." Talari's glowing eyes softened, shimmering with something he could not name. Gratitude, relief, perhaps a dawning understanding. "Tonight," she whispered almost to herself, "I am not alone. And for the first time in many cycles I feel peace." He nodded, letting the silence settle between them. Outside, the ship glided past distant stars, indifferent and eternal. Inside, however, two beings had created a small sanctuary. It was fragile, delicate, and beautiful. A human and a Valari, sharing warmth in a cold, silent universe, discovering a connection that transcended species and space. For Eli, the lesson was simple. Humanity's strength was not only in its ingenuity or resilience, it was in its ability to reach out, to comfort, and to share its warmth with those who had none. And for Talari, the revelation was just as profound. Trust and comfort could exist, even across the boundaries of stars and species. The night grew quieter, the hum of the ship blending with the steady rhythm of their hearts. And in that quiet, under the soft glow of Talari's silver skin, both humans and aliens discovered the simple power of being together, safe, warm, and understood. The cabin was quiet, the hum of the aurora a gentle background lullaby. Talari lay beside Eli under the shared blanket, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. The warmth of his body radiated toward her, and for the first time since leaving her homeworld, she felt something resembling safety. It was strange, almost fragile, but it was real. Eli turned slightly to look at her, careful not to disturb her. Her silver skin glimmered softly in the dim light, and her glowing eyes were open, reflecting the tiny lights of the ship like distant stars. "You've been quiet for a while," he said softly. "Do you want to talk?" She hesitated. Her people were not accustomed to sharing memories of pain, especially not with outsiders. But something about him, the steadiness of his voice, the warmth of his presence, made her brave enough. "My world," she began slowly, "was not always at peace. I was young when the wars began. Fire spread across the skies, consuming everything. Families, friends, everyone I loved was taken." Eli listened quietly, squeezing her hand gently in encouragement. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "I can't imagine what that must have been like." Talari's fingers tightened around his. "It was not only the loss," she said, her voice trembling faintly. "It was the helplessness. I could not stop it. I could not protect anyone. I thought I would die under the flames, but I survived. Alone." Eli's chest tightened at her words. He understood loss. Humans had their wars, their disasters, but hearing it from someone so alien, so fragile, made it feel raw and immediate. "You survived," he said. "That makes you stronger than most. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now." Her eyes met his, glowing softly with unshed tears. "Strength is meaningless without trust," she whispered. "I learned that the hard way. I trusted my own people and it was betrayed. I trusted my own senses and they failed me. Trust became dangerous." Eli nodded slowly. "I understand. But trust can also save us. Sometimes, it's the only thing that keeps us alive in a cold universe." Talari's gaze softened. "That is why I am here, with you. Because I trust you." The weight of her words settled between them. Trust, something so simple for humans, yet so difficult for her species, was now placed in his hands. Eli felt a surge of both responsibility and honor. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze, his voice steady. "I won't let that trust go to waste. You're safe with me." She leaned closer, pressing her forehead lightly against his chest. "Your warmth, it is not only physical. It is calm, steady, protective. It is something I have never experienced before." Eli smiled softly. "That's humans," he said quietly. "We share what we can. We give what we have. Sometimes that's all someone needs to survive." Talari exhaled a soft breath, as if releasing a burden she had carried for cycles. "You humans," she murmured, "are strange, fragile, reckless, loud, yet you offer kindness freely, even to those you do not know. That is a strength I do not fully understand, but I feel it now." Eli felt his heart ache with a mixture of pride and humility. "Maybe that's what keeps us alive," he said. "Not our tech, not our shields, not our weapons, just being there for someone who needs it." She tilted her head up slightly to meet his gaze. Her glowing eyes shimmered with a quiet wonder. "You have given me more than safety tonight, Eli Carter. You have given me hope, something I thought I had lost forever." He wrapped his arm a little tighter around her, careful not to overwhelm her. "Hope is stronger than fear," he said, "and it's contagious. Once you feel it, you want to share it." Talari's hand brushed lightly across his chest, a gesture of both connection and gratitude. "I will remember this night," she said softly. "I will remember what it means to trust, to feel warmth, to be seen without judgment. You have changed something in me." Eli felt a lump in his throat. He had never expected to have this kind of impact, not with words, not with presence alone. "You've changed me too," he admitted quietly. "Not in the same way, maybe, but just by trusting me, by letting me be there for you. You've reminded me why humans care, why we keep going, even when it's hard." For a long moment they stayed together in silence, hearts beating quietly in the dim light. Outside the small cabin window, Distant stars drifted past like cold, indifferent witnesses. Inside, however, two souls, so different in every way, shared a warmth that was human, alien, and eternal all at once. And in that quiet, fragile space, Talari learned something new. Sometimes the hardest thing to give was trust, and the greatest gift was receiving it. The night slowly softened, giving way to the faint hum of artificial morning light spilling across the cabin. Outside, stars continued to drift silently through the endless black of space, indifferent to the tiny moments of life unfolding inside the aurora. But inside, something rare and delicate was happening. Two beings from entirely different worlds were learning the quiet language of trust and comfort. Talari shifted slightly beneath the shared blanket, her head still resting lightly against Eli's chest. Her breathing was calm now, steady, no longer punctuated by the panic of nightmares. The soft glow of her skin illuminated the small space around them, casting pale reflections on the metal walls. Eli could feel her pulse slowly matching the rhythm of his own, a gentle synchrony that seemed almost sacred. "You humans," Talari whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship, "carry something extraordinary. It is not strength or cunning. It is warmth. You offer it without expectation, without question. I have never felt such certainty in another being." Eli smiled softly, running a hand along her arm. "It's simple," he said quietly. "We know what it's like to be cold, alone, scared, so we try to give what we can. Sometimes that's just our presence. Sometimes that's enough." She turned her glowing eyes toward him, reflecting awe and something that resembled gratitude. "Enough," she repeated, testing the word. "You offer enough. And it is more than I have felt in cycles, more than I thought possible." For a while they stayed in silence, letting the quiet fill the cabin. Eli's mind wandered, thinking about the fragile beauty of this moment. She had trusted him completely, without hesitation, and he had held her without judgment. It was such a small thing in the universe, yet it carried more weight than any battle or mission. Finally, Talari shifted closer, resting her forehead gently against his chest. "Eli," she whispered, "I am grateful. For warmth, for safety, for trust. You have given me all of these things tonight, and I do not know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," he said softly, his voice steady but warm. "Just being here with you, letting you rest, is enough." Her hand brushed lightly over his, lingering in a gesture of connection. "I will remember this night," she murmured. "I will remember that it is possible to feel safe, to feel warmth, and to trust again. Perhaps that is more valuable than any weapon, any technology. Perhaps it is the greatest strength." Eli's chest tightened with emotion. He had never thought of it that way, yet hearing it from her, someone who had survived unimaginable loss, made it feel profoundly true. "Maybe it is," he said quietly. "Maybe that's why humans keep going. We face the cold, the dark, the impossible, and we keep caring. That's what makes us human." Her glowing eyes softened further, shimmering with quiet wonder. "And you," she said, almost to herself, "have reminded me that even those from different worlds can share this warmth. Even those who are strangers can become allies, friends, family." The words hung in the air like starlight. Eli felt something he could not describe, a mixture of awe and humility. "You've given me something too," he admitted. "Being here with you, letting me help you, it reminds me why we care, why we endure, why we reach out to others even when it's hard." Talari tilted her head against his chest, a small, soft smile playing across her lips. "Then we have both given," she whispered. "And perhaps that is the way of the universe. Shared warmth is stronger than any distance, any fear." As the first hints of artificial sunlight filled the cabin, Eli felt a quiet peace settle over them. The warmth between them was no longer just physical. It was trust. It was understanding. It was a fragile, luminous bridge between two worlds. Outside, the stars drifted silently past, ancient and eternal. Inside, two hearts beat in quiet harmony, learning something neither species could have taught alone. That comfort, warmth, and trust are not weaknesses. They are strength. And in that cabin, floating in the cold expanse of space, Eli and Talari discovered that even in the vast universe, connection and care could create light where there had once been only darkness. Tonight they had survived fear. Tonight they had found trust. And tomorrow, whatever the universe might bring, they would carry it with them. The cabin was quiet, bathed in the soft, artificial light of the aurora's morning cycle. Eli stirred first, opening his eyes slowly. The blanket had shifted slightly during the night, and beside him, Talari lay still, her silver skin faintly glowing in the dim light. Her breathing was calm, steady, and for the first time in many cycles she seemed entirely at peace. Eli watched her for a long moment. Her presence beside him was a reminder of how fragile and yet resilient life could be, so different from him in every way, her species, her world, her experiences. Yet here she was, choosing to trust him completely. It was humbling, inspiring, and quietly beautiful. "Morning," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. Talari's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly as she turned her head to look at him. "Morning," she replied, her voice low but steady. There was a softness in her expression, a gentle calm that had not been there before. Eli stretched slightly, careful not to disturb her. "Sleep well?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She nodded slowly. "Yes, for the first time in many cycles. I dreamed of light, not fire. I felt warmth, not fear. I rested." Her gaze lingered on him, shimmering with quiet gratitude. "You humans? You carry something remarkable in your hearts. You give it freely. I understand now why your kind endures in the vast cold universe. It is not only strength. It is kindness. It is care." Eli smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that had little to do with the blanket. "We try," he said simply. "We have to. Otherwise, what's the point of surviving if we don't make each other's lives better?" Her glowing eyes softened further and she reached out, touching his shoulder lightly. The gesture was brief but full of meaning. "You have reminded me of something I thought lost," she said. "Trust, hope, peace. Tonight you gave me all of these, and I do not know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Eli said gently. "Seeing you rest, seeing you feel safe, that's enough. That's more than enough." Talari's lips curved into a faint, delicate smile. "You humans? You survive not only because of technology or weapons, but because of hearts like yours. Perhaps that is your greatest strength." Eli chuckled softly. "Maybe it is," he said. "Or maybe it's just knowing that someone somewhere cares enough to stay by your side when you need it most." They shared a quiet silence, listening to the soft hum of the ship. Outside, the endless stars drifted silently past, indifferent to the lives aboard the Aurora. But inside, something extraordinary had happened. Two beings, so different in form, thought, and origin, had created something rare, a connection built on trust, warmth, and compassion. Finally, Talari shifted, standing slowly and stretching with graceful ease. "I will go to my duties," she said softly. "But tonight I will remember. Your kindness, your warmth, your willingness to share without expectation, it will remain with me." Eli nodded, standing as well. "I'll remember it too," he said. "You've reminded me why we humans care, why we endure, and maybe why we are worth it." She looked at him one last time, eyes glowing faintly with the soft light of early morning. "You have changed something in me, Eli Carter. Not by words, but by presence. By allowing me to trust. By offering warmth when none was expected. I will not forget." Eli smiled, a quiet, contented smile. "Neither will I," he said. As Talari left the cabin, her silver form moving gracefully down the corridor, Eli felt a profound sense of hope. Humanity's strength was not only in resilience or cleverness, he realized. It was in moments like this, small, quiet acts of trust, care, and warmth shared in a universe that often seemed cold and indifferent. He watched her disappear around the corner and returned to his bunk, wrapping himself in the remaining warmth of the blanket. The stars outside were still endless, still cold, still vast. Yet inside him and in the shared memory of that night, a light had been kindled, a light that spoke of trust, hope, and the quiet power of connection. Because sometimes, The greatest victories were not won with weapons or strategy, but with hearts open enough to care. And tonight, in the silent hum of the aurora, two beings from different worlds had discovered exactly that.